I went to him for a lesson. He said, all right, play me something with a bow. And I said, I've never played with a bow before. He's like, okay, I got it. So and then we kind of started from zero. And I went nuts, man, with the bow. I would practice like crazy.
We have on the show today one of the co-authors of the wonderful new book, Killer Walking Bass. I'm Jason Heath. This is Contrabass Conversations, and we're on the line today with Teymur Phell. Now, Teymur has been playing with the Mike Stern Band for the last several years, and he is just one of the most active bass players, electric and upright, out there right now. Lives in New York City. He's originally from Azerbaijan, and he went to school at the Jerusalem Academy of Music with a former Contrabass Conversations guest. That's Michael Klinghoffer. Now, if you've never listened to Michael's episode, go back in the archives and listen. Talk about somebody who doesn't think like other bass teachers. Brilliant guy and brilliant approach to the bass. So we talk about how that had an influence on Teymur's playing. We talk about creating walking bass lines. I mean, he just wrote this book with co-author Jim Callback. Great book, by the way. We talk about the nuts and bolts of this new offering and just about walking in general and how Teymur actually likes walking and making walking bass lines on the electric bass. This is a fantastic conversation, and the show is brought to you today by some wonderful sponsors. We have Upton Bass String Instrument Company, D'Addario Strings, Robertson and Sons Violins, and A440 Violin Shop. More on them later, but let's dive into our conversation with Teymur, and we'll listen a bit today to one of Teymur's blazing bass solos with the Mike Stern Band.
Hey, Jason.
How's it going, Teymur? How are you doing?
What's happening, man?
Not much. Are you, where are you these days? Are you in New York right now?
Yeah, I'm back home.
Nice.
What's happening?
Perfect. Yeah. So where were you recently? You're on the road for a while, right?
Yeah, well, I just did this week with Mike Stern and Bill Evans. We played, in the Midwest, Chicago, Detroit, Indiana, stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
And I've been back for a minute, and I'm working actually on my album.
So solo album?
Yeah, so I'm starting recording in December, and I got half of it is gonna be like a young band, and half of it is gonna be like I'm getting Dennis Chambers, I'm getting Randy Brecker, I'm getting Mike. So I'm gonna do 2, 3, 4 tunes like with these guys, and the rest of it I'm gonna do with the young band that I can actually take on the road. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but we're starting. The hardest part is getting Mike and Dennis Chambers at the same time in the studio.
Yeah, that's got to be so tricky, just trying to like get all those people aligned for something like that.
But I got it.
You got it. Okay, congratulations. So you studied with Michael Klinghoffer, right?
Oh yeah, for a while.
That's fantastic.
You know him?
Oh yeah, he and I go way back, just through the whole bass world, and he comes to these bass conferences and all that sort of good stuff. And I interviewed him way back in the day for the podcast. And yeah, that's great. He's I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to college, I was playing electric bass back then, and I want to play upright, but there wasn't any upright jazz teachers, right?
Yeah.
So somebody told me, go study electric bass with this and this, and I said, I don't really want to do that. One upright. And they said the only upright guy available is the classical guy. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, then I'm going to him. And then I went, and I was in the jazz department, and I went to him for a lesson. He said, all right, play me something with a bow. And I said, I've never played with a bow before. He's like, okay, I got it. So and then we kind of started from zero, and I went nuts, man, with the bow. I would practice like crazy. I was like 18.
Yeah.
And I started practicing, and by the end of that first year, he said, let's audition for classical second year and see if you can get in. And I auditioned, and I got in after a year. So, and then I kept studying with him another 3 years after that.
Wow. So all in with the bow, no bow, electric bass, no bow. Were you playing upright at that point already, or was upright pretty new to you? Or?
I was playing a little bit of, jazz, but I never really studied the bow. But he got me into the whole thing. He really taught me he really taught me how to practice and how to pay attention to even when I teach today. I mean, I remember a lot of the things that he showed me. So
Well, you must have got that. I wonder how come you got so into the bow all of a sudden. Was it just like this new angle, new sonic exploration world? What was it about the bow that got you inspired like that? I wonder.
I mean, I somehow I think internally I just knew that if I want to really play upright and be in pitch, I had to do that. And I just got into it. And that was great, man. I loved every moment. I played Dragonetti, Battassini, all that stuff.
That's fantastic. And I think about like Ray Brown or folks talking about how much they were into the bow, right? Or even like Milt Hinton going back, like just practicing scales, arpeggios, all that kind of stuff. That it's like something that so many people talk about. I was just interviewing Eric Rivas, Branford Marsalis' bass player. What's he do every day? He breaks out the bow and he starts doing arpeggios all over the bass. So
yeah,
and I think that's a lesson like people that don't that maybe come to jazz from electric bass or they're not into the bow, they might not realize until they start experimenting with the bow, like what it unlocks.
Yeah, because the other thing is just accuracy. When you play with your fingers, there's like 2, 3, 4 spots that it's still gonna sound okay. Like when you walk on low notes, but stuff like thumb position and just moving around and knowing when the notes are. Not just kind of feeling and hearing it, because obviously everybody who's doing this is years of playing and practicing. Everybody got like nice ears and you can hear when you're in pitch and not, but you can play a scale fingers with pizzicato and it'll sound good. Play the same thing with a bow and you go like, uh-oh. That wasn't as nice.
Yeah, it's like putting a magnifying glass on your playing and like just getting the bass to resonate like that. It's like, it just changes your perception of intonation, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the main thing that I now realize that did for me on my electric bass is the whole vibrato thing. How many times have you seen people play electric bass and go like, the fast vibrato that doesn't make sense? Right. Like, because when you play bow, you understand how to make one note sound pretty. How you start it, then you put the vibrato in, and then you end it. It's a process, right? So when you play electric bass, it's kind of the same. Let me just get a bass.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you heard somebody play something?
Yeah.
As soon as you hear that, you know. So if you just come up here and you... Just those little touches of making a note sound pretty.
Yeah.
It's big time. That's coming from the upright. You can do the same thing even when you play a chord. You want to, like, you can just play a chord. Let's say, or you can do it. And then you do it with all your fingers, not just one. But definitely, even when you play a low note, like just a C, you can manipulate it. I always talk about how you should start the note with nothing, just the note, and then put the vibrato. Because if you do a vibrato right away, as soon as you play a note, it sounds gross. You got to first let the note be born and then put it in like this. And then take it out.
You're approaching it kind of like a saxophone player might, or wind player, or even a vocalist. And I think that's one of those things that's one of the nice things about working with the bow is all of a sudden you take something where like you give it a little bit more of that durational quality where you're able, I think that's sort of what I'm hearing like as you're playing.
Yeah, I mean just knowing how to it's all about controlling the sound. It's being able to produce whatever you hear. That's the hard part.
And you picked that up from your dad? Because I know he's a composer, right? Also, like both your parents are musical.
Yeah, my grandma was a musician too, and composer, and my dad definitely. Yeah, my dad, not so much, my dad worked with me when I was younger, more about like harmony and playing a bit piano and figuring out chords and scales, stuff like that. And then as far as, because my dad never let me have bass lessons. I always asked him for lessons. I was a kid. I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I wanted a bass teacher, and he would never let me. He never got me lessons. He just kind of showed me music. He got me a bunch of DVDs, and in the beginning it was video cassettes, and I had Jaco, Patitucci, stuff like that.
This episode is brought to you by the good folks at Upton Bass String Instrument Company. Eric and Gary and the whole Upton team, I can't say enough good things about them. And they have been on board with the various endeavors I've done online from the start. They were one of the early sponsors of the blog back in 2006 and 2007. And it has been so fun to follow along with their journey and see them develop these new models of basses like the car bass, the Bostonian, the Bohemian, and to connect with all these amazing players. I've had the privilege of speaking with so many people that play Upton basses, from Eric Rivas of Branford Marsalis' band and Lucia Torino of The Devil Makes Three, all the way over to Anthony Monzo of the New Century Chamber Orchestra, and Kevin Smith, Willie Nelson's bass player. I've had many students purchase Upton basses over the years. I've had a lot of colleagues play Upton basses. I see them on gigs all the time. They play great, and Upton stands behind their work. Can't recommend them highly enough. Check them out online at uptonbass.com. This episode is brought to you by the A440 Violin Shop. It's located just down the street from Wrigley Field in beautiful Chicago on the north side, just off the Brown Line. I have been going there my entire adult life, and they have been fantastic, both for repairs. I've had cracks repaired, I've had seams glued, I've had all sorts of students go to A440 to get instruments, to get bows. They're available with a smile, do wonderful work, and definitely check them out if you are in the Midwest. A440violinshop.com, and thanks for sponsoring the podcast. So you're watching people like Jaco and Patitucci and trying to figure out what the heck is going on, how all these sounds are coming out. What a cool thing now, because I know that you, when you got to New York, you spent some time with John, right? Working with Patitucci.
Yeah, I took some lessons with John. It was fun.
Yeah. What a great guy.
Often, yeah, it was a lot of fun to take lessons with him. Definitely. Great experience. Yeah.
So you grew up in Israel. Then when did you get over to New York? When did that all happen for you?
End of 2010. I think I came December 2010. It was a big snowstorm.
Oh, nice.
And I got here, and I kind of did because I applied to the City College of New York, because I had my bachelor's degree from studying with Michael. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to go to do my master's because that would be my ticket in the country, get a student visa.
Yeah.
And Patitucci was he was teaching that. That's why I wanted to go. But then they didn't accept me in the school. They said no. So and then I said, well, I'm going to go anyway on a tourist visa and see if I can figure it out or whatever. I don't know. I'm buying a ticket and I'm going. Whatever happens, right? So I got here and did what everybody else kind of told me, that you should go to jam sessions and try to play with people. And I got a couple gigs, just small-time jazz stuff in the city. And then I left for a month, and I got back, and I started working on getting an artist visa with a lawyer and everything. And I met Mike Stern, because I kept going to his gigs all the time and driving him nuts, begging, just saying, we got to play. And then finally it was like, okay, let's play,
And you've been playing with him regularly for years now at this point.
Yeah, on and off for years. Yeah. I played with him then I left for about a year, and I played with Arturo Sandoval on the road quite a bit. Then I left that and kind of started playing with him again. But, also doing a lot of other stuff. I've been producing this singer, Alex Young, writing all of her songs, recording everything. So I've done a lot of that too. I like to do all kinds of stuff. I love to play the piano and write music.
Yeah.
Whatever I can do.
and write walking bassline books and all sorts of stuff.
Well, that actually started with Jim, because I would do it for him. And then he said, Jim Callback, and he said, we should do a book. And I said, well, okay, let's do it. because you went through the book a little bit, right? You
Yeah.
saw the approach. It's not like learn the lines, because a lot of them are super melodic. It just grasp that concept of it's not just. It can be more than that.
Yeah, it's. I actually went through the book and I was playing through all the different lines and just sort of getting a feel for what it was all about. And yeah, it's kind of a cool idea. I mean, it's makes sense to me, but I think it's a great way to approach things rather than just like walking scales like you were just doing, like thinking about them as melodies. Did you always think of bass lines as melodies, or did that start to happen at a certain point for you?
I mean, I guess at some point I got bored from playing. No, I don't want to say bored, but just I thought there could be more to it.
Yeah.
And actually, John Patitucci had something to do with it back then, because I remember one time he told me that when you play a bass line, and I was still kind of right? I was like 23. And he said, when you play a bass line on its own, you should be able to hear the whole tune. Not just harmonically, but also little elements from the melody of the tune.
Yeah. Like a piano accompaniment, like someone comping, what you would be able to hear the elements of the tune, like kind of the structure like that. If you removed everything.
Yeah, well, it's a nice thing to try to do. I mean, it's just another approach. The other walking bass stuff is great. I mean, I personally learned a lot of the Ron Carter stuff, the Ray Brown walking bass. That's kind of where I'm coming from, and some other stuff as well. Mainly those two, Ray Brown and Ron Carter. And then it's like improvise. You kind of learn it, and then you start doing it. You got elements from what you learned, but you don't want to. At first, I learned the lines as they are, especially when I was younger, 15, 16, I would learn 8 choruses of an F blues, and I would play it by heart, right? And really learn it. But then you realize that whatever you learn by heart, it doesn't always work under every soloist, because the whole point is also listening and reacting. So you can't show up to a gig and this is the bass line I'm going to play 100% and I don't care. Yeah. It's great for learning. It's great to sit at home and study that stuff. But later on the gig, you got to be free enough to make the right choices, but also be able to listen and react right away to what's happening. You get there. I mean, I'm still trying to get there, so...
This episode is brought to you by Robertson and Sons violins. For more than 40 years, over 4 decades, Robertson and Sons has specialized in providing the highest quality stringed instruments and bows to collectors, professional musicians, music educators, and students of all ages. Their modern facility, which is totally beautiful, by the way, if you're ever able to make it out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, I highly recommend it. They have a recital hall that they use not only for performances, but it's available to their clients. So if you want to try out a fine pedigree bass or even a student bass or anything in between, you can go in that recital hall. I've had the chance to do that. Totally amazing. I'm like a kid in the candy store when I'm down there at Robertson's. Check them out online at robertsonsviolins.com. And thank you so much for sponsoring the podcast. This episode is brought to you by D'Addario Strings. Check out their Zyx strings, which are synthetic core strings that produce an extremely warm, rich sound. Get the sound and feel of gut strings with more evenness, projection, and stability than real gut. Thanks for sponsoring the podcast, D'Addario. In terms of this, and I know you do all sorts of things, like you were saying, like writing and producing also. Like in terms of bass, do you are you playing about 50% electric, 50% upright, or mostly upright, or depends on the project? How does that all work for you?
I mean, first of all, traveling, I always prefer doing it with an electric bass because, I mean, it's not our fault. They've made it terrible. And unless there's a special budget and some, for an upright, there's smaller. I got this travel upright, a Yamaha stick bass that sounds incredible. That's good. I got a fly case for it, and that's fun. But I sort of developed this liking to walk to playing jazz on electric bass. It's a little different. It's also cool. Mm-hmm. But I love the upright too. I mean, yeah. If somebody wants me to play upright and it's the right thing, I'm doing it. But another thing is, when I came to New York, I used to, do the subway with the upright all the time, because cabs in New York, you can't really catch a cab that you can't put the upright in because there's this block. Mm-hmm. There's no way to put an upright in the cab. So usually you have to get on the train with it. And then after a while, my lower back went to hell and just forget it. I said, I can't do it anymore. Just schlepping the upright around the city. Yeah. So I kind of picked my gigs a little bit because I could do it, so... But definitely, I love the upright. I mean, I play it all the time, and I'm going to play upright on my record as well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But you got really into walking on the electric.
Yeah, man. You can't swing electric bass if you do it right. There's ways to do it. If you every second you'll do... You'll do all these embellishments all the time. It's not going to sound good. So I have this video on my music masterclass where I talk about just... playing solid, fat walking bass. I mean, Marcus Miller was a really good influence on me because not a lot of people know this, but Marcus Miller can, when he plays jazz and he walks electric bass, it sounds unbelievable. Especially he does the thumb thing as well.
Yeah.
I heard him play with Chick at the Blue Note. A few months. It was, incredible. And I also talked to him a little bit, and I was on a jazz cruise with him one year, and I heard him do that stuff, and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Great. Unbelievable. Anthony Jackson's another guy who could really walk electric bass beautifully.
And so, that thumb technique works fantastically well too. The walking with the thumb, it almost has like an upright kind of quality to the attack and the sustain.
Yeah, it's just you kind of put your hand here like this, and trying to get fat notes out, It's great.
Yeah. Is this your main acts that you play?
I'm playing these electric basses. They're made by F Bass, as company in Hamilton, Ontario, and this basically, it's a 6-string, but it's basically kind of a jazz bass on steroids because it's single coil pickups and they're exposed poles, and the preamp is pretty simple. It's just pickup, blend, volume, bass, mid, treble, and tone like you would have on a jazz bass. And it's an ash body, 2-piece ash body, 3-piece ash neck, McCaster Ebony board. Pretty straightforward, but great sounding instrument. I got a couple of those, and I love them.
And if you're on the road these days and you do play upright, if you do, you're bringing that Yamaha, the silent bass or whatever they call it?
Yeah, because most places you either bring the real upright and you fly it, and then it's a drag, especially on long tours, or they get you a bass. And when they get you a bass, it's I mean, the kind of stuff that I do, I'm playing, I'm not just comping. If I have to take a solo on a bass that I don't know and the action is a bit, I can't, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I can't really do it. So I'd rather bring, and it's also hard to mic it. It's never sounding great. So when I bring the stick, it has a preamp in, and it always sounds better. It's easier to do sound on big stages, and it just sounds great, and it's my action, and it's a bass I'm used to, and I can fly with it. And it's a 50-pound total bag, so they don't charge you for it. I mean, it's just reality.
Yeah, right.
If I have a gig that will require me flying with the upright, and it's paying accordingly, and there's a budget for the upright and all that stuff. It's my daughter, she's crying. And yeah, of course, man, it's right. Right. I mean, no prejudice. I love all of that stuff.
With the new album, because you're writing and producing and everything, are you doing everything yourself? Do you have a team of people helping out with that album?
My record?
Yeah.
Well, I'm writing all the tunes, of course, myself. And I got a guy to co-produce with me, great friend and incredible musician. His name is Nitzan Gavrieli. And he's a piano player. Just to it's always good to have a second ear, because I write the tunes, I hear them so many times, it's hard for me, to have a clear perspective of, what do you think, Yeah. And then also we do some horn lines together, and here and there might change a couple chords. He might have he might have a better idea all of a sudden. Then I'll be like, great, let's do that, Great guy.
Sounds like a sweet lineup you've got for that.
I wanted to do the record on my terms. Best studio, best musician. So it's costing money.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to do it right.
Man, hey, I usually end with some sort of advice question. I was just wondering, because you came over here, made it work, you're living in New York City doing all this, but that's a scary thing for a lot of people. And I get a lot of people emailing or asking questions like, hey, should I move to New York? Should I, I know that's
I get that.
right?
I get that all the time.
So what do you tell people when they ask you that? I mean, you made it work, but it's obviously a challenge. What advice do you give folks?
Well, I'm not going to tell anybody not to do it, because if somebody wants to do it, that's their dream or whatever. You got to, I'm not going to say anything. But certain people, I will hear a big gap between the dreams that they're talking about and where they are music-wise. Like somebody who's not really spent any time doing ear training, and you can tell right away, or somebody who's not. Some people that I feel that are not there yet, I definitely say take a minute. First, I think you should do some more work first, and then consider it. Somebody else that sounds great, I say, look, you sound really nice. If you want to do it, you should do it. Go for it. But it's it's not gonna be a day at the park. It's gonna be what it's gonna be. So you got to be able to. You got to know that's what's going to happen. But definitely, if somebody wants to do it, there's so many great musicians in New York, so many different circles, So if you have good attitude and you can play, you should find a spot for yourself,
Yeah. Man, it's great. It's great to chat with you. This is. Thanks for taking the time. I know you're a super busy guy,
man.
Teymur, you rock, man. Thanks for chatting with me. We got to do a round 2 at some point soon. And definitely, folks, check out killerwalkingbass.com for the book and all the details about it. Super cool offering from Teymur and Jim. And that's going to do it for today's episode. I am so glad to have you on this journey with me, whether it's your first Contrabass Conversations episode or your 450th or whatever we're on at this point. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening to these shows. I have such a great time chatting with folks like Teymur. And if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can do so through Apple Podcasts, through Stitcher, through Google Play, or using our Contrabass Conversations app. And we have that for iOS, we have that for Android, we have that for Kindle, whatever you're using, and we'll have it for more platforms as they become available. It's a great app. It gives you access to all of the podcast episodes going back to the very beginning, and you can search through it for whatever topic you're interested in, whether that's jazz or classical or walking bass, for example, like today. Very, very useful way to navigate the show. If you'd like to reach out to me, feedback at Contrabass Conversations is my email. I would love to hear from you and your thoughts on the show and any new directions you'd like to see going forward. And I just want to thank you for listening. Share this with a friend if you know somebody, bass player or not, that you think would benefit from this conversation with Teymur. Just forward it on email or go on social media and share it. That's even better. I would totally appreciate it. We have a great team here at Contrabass Conversations. Michael Cooper and Steve Hinchy are our editors. Our audio engineer is Mitch Mooring. Publication and promotion comes from Trevor Jones, and I am Jason Heath, coming to you from beautiful San Francisco, California. I feel so lucky to be out here doing the show here. Can't believe life led me here. And I just want to thank you for listening. Thank you so much. We will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.